Every night, Rusty escaped the backyard, and every morning Emma found him sitting by the same stretch of road, the one where her brother died, the same road where Rusty had once been found, refusing to leave a wreck. It always happened after midnight. Somewhere beyond the hum of crickets and the rustle of dry leaves in the wind, a gate creaked open. Soft paws touched the cold ground. A figure slipped into the dark like a shadow, remembering where it once belonged. Down a narrow road, beneath the faded glow of a single streetlight, an old beagle sat, still, motionless, staring at the empty stretch of pavement as if waiting for something or someone to return. That was how Emma found him. She was barefoot, holding a flashlight in one hand and her phone in the other, wearing a cardigan that hung off one shoulder. The fifth night in a row. Always the same. Always that spot. Rusty didn't move until she crouched beside him. Then, slowly, he rose and leaned into her touch, like he had only paused his vigil, not abandoned it. Emma didn't say anything. She never did. She just waited, then walked him home in silence. The leash was barely needed. He always followed, but not before glancing back, just once, down that empty road. She tightened the latch the next morning, wedged a brick beside the fence, added another hook. Still, by the time she got off her late shift at the diner, Rusty was gone again. Emma had only adopted him 3 weeks earlier. He was older, slower, with one cloudy eye and a limp that flared up when it rained. He rarely barked, rarely played. He seemed to eat only because it was expected of him. But when he left the yard each night, it was with purpose, as if something inside him still remembered a promise. The shelter said he'd been found alone by the highway, just standing there. No collar, no microchip. No one came to claim him. They guessed he was around 11. They said he'd been through something. You could see it in the way he watched doors. Emma didn't need him to be cheerful. She just needed him to stay. She lived alone now, in the little house with peeling white paint and wind chimes that hadn't rung in years. 2 years ago, her brother Luke had taken the car to pick up a friend from work. He never made it back. A drunk driver crossed the line near the edge of town, near that stretch of road. She never drove that way anymore, until Rusty started, leading her there. At first, she thought it was a fluke, a broken gate, an old dog confused by shadows. But 5 nights in a row, always the same direction, always the same quiet vigil. She didn't know what he saw out there, what he felt, but part of her understood. So on the 6th night, Emma bought a motion-activated camera and set it up outside. She didn't tell anyone. It wasn't about proving anything. She just needed to see. She didn't watch the footage right away. Let it sit on the memory card until the silence in her house felt louder than usual. It was almost 2 a.m. when she finally opened the file, her laptop glowing against the dim kitchen walls. There he was. The video showed Rusty standing at the fence, nose pressed to the corner. He pawed gently, quietly, not in panic, but with strange care. Then he pressed his shoulder against the gate. The latch gave. Not broken, just learned, practiced. Then he limped out. No hesitation. The camera caught him moving slowly down the driveway, tail low, ears back. He walked with the same deliberate steps every time, like he knew each crack in the sidewalk, like he remembered them. Emma watched him vanish into the dark, her throat tight. The footage ran until morning, but Rusty didn't return on camera, because he was always back by sunrise, curled up by the porch as if nothing had happened. She closed the laptop, The next night, she didn't wait for him to leave. She followed. At 12 a.m., she stood hidden behind the kitchen window, watching him slip out again. She held her breath as he moved across the yard, pausing only once, head tilted toward the sky, like he was listening for something. Then he was gone. Emma grabbed her coat and followed him at a distance, her steps slow, careful not to startle him. She stayed just out of sight. The road was cold and cracked underfoot, scattered with brittle leaves and the quiet kind of darkness that made everything feel older. Rusty stopped at the same place he always did, the edge of town, just past the faded welcome sign and across from an old sycamore tree that had split down the middle during last year's storm. A crooked streetlight flickered above him. Everything around them was still. He sat, didn't sniff, didn't pace, just sat and stared at the road like it owed him something. Emma stayed frozen in place, watching from behind a low hedge, her breath caught in her throat, the way his ears twitched at every sound, the way his body leaned forward just slightly, like he wanted to see someone appear. Her eyes blurred. That's when it hit her. This was the place. The exact stretch of road. The curve just before the stop sign. This was where they had found Luke's car. And Rusty. Rusty had been found not far from here, standing in the same spot, waiting. She hadn't just adopted a dog. She had brought home a witness. Emma stood there for a long time, the cold settling into her hands, the wind pulling softly at her coat. Her heart pounded quietly in her chest, not with fear, but with a strange kind of ache. The kind that only comes when you realize something isn't random, when pain connects in ways you hadn't seen before. Rusty didn't look back. He stayed there, still and loyal, as if time hadn't moved forward, as if he was stuck in the moment someone left and never came back. Emma took a slow step forward, then another. The gravel crunched beneath her shoes, soft enough not to startle, but loud enough to let him know she was there. He didn't run. He didn't flinch. He just turned his head slightly, one ear lifting. She sat beside him. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. For the first time in months, maybe even years, the silence between two living souls didn't feel empty. They stayed that way until the first hint of light crept over the hills. By the time they walked home, something had shifted between them. It wasn't trust, exactly. It was older than that. It was recognition. A quiet agreement between two broken hearts who had found each other in the shadows of grief. From that night on, Emma didn't try to stop him. Every evening, after work, she'd make tea, grab her coat, and walk with him to the edge of town. They never talked, never rushed. She'd sit on the cracked stone by the roadside, and Rusty would take his place beside her. Some nights they stayed until morning, some nights only an hour. But always they went together. Neighbors began to notice. Someone even posted a blurry photo online. The woman and the old dog watching the road like ghosts from another life. Emma didn't care. It wasn't for them. She started to bring little things. An old flannel blanket. A candle in a jar, lit and placed between them. One night, she brought a photo of Luke. Not to show Rusty, just to hold. Just to remind herself that some things were real, even if they were gone. Rusty rested his head on her lap that night. It was the first time. She ran her hand gently over his back, her fingers trailing the ridges of his old scars, the thin patches where fur hadn't grown back. Every dog has a story, but some carry it deeper than others, in their bones, In their silence, Emma started leaving the porch light on for him. Even though he didn't escape anymore, she fixed the latch anyway. Old habits. One morning, she woke to find him curled up on her brother's sweatshirt, the one she had folded years ago and tucked away in the closet. She didn't know how he found it. Maybe he smelled the grief in the fabric. Maybe he just knew. She didn't move him, just knelt beside him, rested her head gently on his side, and cried. Not the kind of cry that needed comfort, the kind that needed release. The vet visits became more frequent after that. Rusty's limp got worse. Some days he barely ate. Others, he seemed to light up just enough to follow her to the road. But Emma saw it, the way he slowed, the way he winced getting up. His eyes were still soft, still aware, but they were tired. The vet said it was his heart. Not immediately dangerous, not yet, but soon. Maybe a few months, maybe less. Emma nodded. She didn't cry in front of them. She waited until she was home, sitting by the window while Rusty dozed in the sun, before the tears came, and, even then, they weren't for herself. They were for him, for the things he never got to say, for the people he still waited for the stretch of road where love had once ended, and where it had somehow begun again. As fall turned to winter, they made fewer trips to the roadside. The wind got colder, the air heavier. Emma brought hand warmers, tucked them into her pockets, into his little coat. She would lift him into the passenger seat and drive him the last bit, park under the sycamore tree, and they'd watch the road from the car. He still looked, still listened, still waited, until one day, he didn't. It was a Wednesday. The sky was clear. She woke early and found him in the kitchen, lying by the back door, eyes open, breathing soft. He tried to stand when he saw her, but his legs gave out gently beneath him. Emma sat with him, stroked his ears, held his paw. No panic, no rush. Just the quiet understanding that comes when two hearts know they're near the end of their story, together. Rusty looked at her, not past her, not through her, at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, he wagged his tail. Just once. It was small, barely more than a twitch, but Emma felt it like a heartbeat under her skin, like the first warm wind after a long, bitter season. That little wag. It was everything. Not because it was big or dramatic, but because it was meant for her. She sat with him the entire day, didn't go to work, didn't turn on the TV, just stayed on the floor, the cold of the tile seeping into her legs, her hand resting gently on his chest. His breathing was slow but steady, like waves on a shore that were growing further apart. That night, she didn't take him to the road. He didn't ask to go. Instead, they watched the wind move through the trees outside the window. Shadows of branches danced across the walls. Somewhere in the distance, a train passed, soft, echoing, and Rusty's ears perked just slightly, like it reminded him of something long ago. Emma whispered once, not words, just a sound, a soft exhale that carried more love than anything she could have said out loud. He closed his eyes. She didn't sleep? Not really. Just drifted in and out beside him, waking every so often to make sure he was still warm, still with her. And when the sun rose, quiet and gold through the kitchen window, Rusty was gone. No struggle, no fear, just stillness. The kind that feels full, not empty. She buried him on the hill behind the house, under the tall tree where the leaves always turned first. The earth was frozen in patches, but she dug anyway, her hands raw and shaking. She wrapped him in Luke's sweatshirt, the one he had slept on, and placed a flat stone above the soil, pressing her palm to it when she was done. For a long time, she didn't visit the road. Couldn't. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was that she cared too much. That stretch of pavement, the silence, the waiting, it all belonged to them. And now, one of them was gone. But grief doesn't stay quiet forever. It changes shape. Some days, it felt like a weight in her chest. Others, it felt like a warmth she couldn't explain. She started walking again, not to the road, not yet, but around the block, past the diner, through the old apple orchard where the ground was soft and muddy. She still left the porch light on, not because she thought he was coming back, but because it made her feel like he hadn't fully left. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2. One morning, on a whim, she made 2 mugs of tea, like she used to, and poured one into the earth beneath the tree. "Thought you might be cold," she said softly, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She still missed him, every day. But something inside had shifted. Not moved on, just moved. The pain wasn't jagged anymore. It had softened, worn into something she could carry. One evening, as the sky turned to amber and the breeze smelled faintly of pine, Emma walked to the edge of town. Not because she had to, not because he might be there, just because. She sat on the cracked stone where they always used to sit. The candle jar was still there, tipped slightly, but unbroken. She lit it again and placed it between her feet. The road was quiet, the air cool. She closed her eyes and listened, not for traffic, not for footsteps, but for the memory of Rusty's breath beside her. And in that stillness, she felt it, not a ghost, not a vision, just the presence of something that had mattered deeply. That still did. She stayed until the stars blinked awake, her fingers wrapped gently around the photo of her brother, her other hand resting on the place where Rusty used to sit. She didn't cry, didn't need to. Grief had turned to gratitude. She had loved and been loved by something pure. And even though he was gone, the waiting was over. Spring came slowly that year. The snow didn't melt all at once. It retreated little by little, like it was unsure if it was safe to go. The world was waking up again. Buds on the trees, birds on the wire, the scent of wet earth rising from the ground. Emma started spending more time outside. Not for any big reason, just small ones. She'd plant bulbs she wasn't sure would bloom. Sweep the porch even if it wasn't dirty. Sit on the back step with a mug in her hand, looking out at the fence Rusty used to slip through. It was still broken. She never fixed it. Didn't feel right to. Let it stay that way. A mark of him. Proof that something had mattered enough to try, night after night, to find its way back to where love once lived. She adopted again in June. Not because she was trying to replace him. She knew better than that. You can't replace a soul. But her house had gone too quiet, too still. And one afternoon, she passed the shelter on the way home and didn't keep driving. The new dog was nothing like Rusty. He was young, chaotic, full of energy and noise, a wiry mutt with uneven ears and a bark that sounded like it belonged to a dog twice his size. He chewed her shoes, knocked over a lamp, dug up the tulips. She named him Echo, because sometimes, when he slept, his breathing sounded just like Rusty's. At first, she was careful, didn't let herself get too attached. Not right away. But then came the little things. A tail thump against the floor when she walked in the room, the way he leaned into her chest when he was scared of thunder, the joy he brought into mornings that used to feel heavy. He didn't try to escape, didn't go to the road. But sometimes, in the quietest hours, he'd sit by the window and stare out, not at anything, really, just the dark, the silence, and she'd join him, the same way she used to sit beside Rusty, not replacing, just remembering and continuing. One evening in July, Emma took Echo to the place, the road. She hadn't been back since that winter night. It felt strange to return, like stepping into a memory you hadn't meant to open. But she brought a blanket, a jar, the same one, still stained with wax. They sat there for a long time. No cars passed, no wind moved, just the chirp of crickets and the hush of dusk. She lit the candle again. Echo didn't understand, of course. He sniffed the edges, pawed at the flame, then curled beside her with a huff and lay his head in her lap. And for the first time since Rusty died, she laughed. Soft. Real. It startled her. It had been so long. She leaned her head back, looked at the sky. A single star was visible, faint but steady. Emma closed her eyes. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Rusty had taught her something she hadn't known how to ask for, that grief doesn't always need fixing, that love, when it's deep and real, keeps showing up, even after the dog is gone, even after the waiting ends, even when all that's left is a broken fence and a silent road. Love stays. Echo shifted in her lap, then settled. His fur was warm against her palms. She whispered thank you, not to him, but to the night, to the past, to the life that brought her here, and the breeze carried it away, soft as breath. The years didn't rush. They arrived like old friends, unannounced, familiar, sometimes kind, sometimes not. Echo grew up fast, faster than Emma expected. His puppy awkwardness gave way to strength, then steadiness. He was her shadow, her reason to open the door in the morning, to walk, to breathe deeper. But something changed in her, too. She smiled more, not big or loud, but often. She sang in the car again, started painting on Sundays. Not well, but with heart. And at the diner, where she still worked the late shift, she stopped saying no when people asked if she was doing okay. She didn't have to fake it anymore, because she was. Okay. Not perfect, not whole, but okay in the kind of way that comes after loss. When the pieces don't fit the same, but you learn to hold them gently anyway. Every year, on the anniversary, she went back to the road, just her and Echo. Or later, another dog after him. Not to mourn, not anymore, but to sit, to remember, to light a small flame and say the names that still mattered. Her brother, Rusty. She never stopped missing them, but the ache softened. It became part of her, like a worn stone in her pocket, something she could hold, but no longer had to explain. One fall morning, years after that first winter, she stood by the fence. The corner was still loose, still leaning, the wood cracked from time and weather. She touched it, smiled, and she left it that way. Not as a flaw, but a marker. Of a dog who had loved so fiercely, he never stopped searching. Of a woman who thought she had nothing left to give, until a limping beagle taught her how to wait. Again, how to sit in silence and still be held. Rusty never came back after that last night, but in a way, he never left. He lived in her walks, in the pause at the edge of the porch, where she'd look at the trees before stepping down, in the way she bent to greet every stray with soft words and a patient hand, in the candle that still sat on her shelf, dusty but whole. There wasn't a grand moment, no last message, no miracle ending, just a quiet truth. That some hearts meet in the middle of grief and stay there long after the pain fades. That love, real love, doesn't need to be loud or forever to change everything. Sometimes it's just one dog, one broken fence, one waiting place at the edge of town. Emma grew old. Echo passed in his 12th year, peacefully. On her lap, the same way Rusty once lay. She cried, yes. How could she not? But she didn't break this time. She knew what to do with grief now. She held it, thanked it, let it walk beside her. And when she adopted again, much later, it wasn't out of loneliness. It was out of joy, to give what had once been given, to be the safe place someone else might run to, because healing, she'd learned, doesn't always look like forgetting. Sometimes it's a dog who escapes every night, because his heart remembers something you don't. And sometimes healing is sitting down beside him in the cold, not to stop him, but to wait, together, until waiting becomes home, until love stays, and the road no longer feels empty, only quiet, only full, only enough. Some hearts don't move on, they simply find someone to wait with. Dogs truly are the most loyal companions in our lives. What did you think of this heartwarming story? Let us know in the comments. Like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for daily emotional dog stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Click here to watch the next story of love, loyalty, and the incredible bond we share with our paw-some friends.